Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Terry Lee Adkins, James Kenneth Ollis, Barry Kenneth Almond, Jerry Lynn Andrews, Tom Lou Austin, Floyd Clark Bailey, Gary Paul Baker, Edward Arnold Barlow, Mills Beale III, Malcolm Frank Bell, Leonard Jonathan Bell, Robert Vernon Bennett, William Donathan Benning, Thomas Howard Berggren, Michael Joseph Blassie, Stephen Warren Begley, Arthur J. Boyer, Roy Lee Branham, Pearl Bush, Peter John Carlson, Ronald James Carter, James W. Charlesworth, Jr., Ronald Lee Chisholm, Gary Doyle Criss, James Gilbert Collins, Chris B. Cordova, Gail Vernon Crawford, Samuel Kent Culbertson, Johnny King Culbreth, Joseph W. Cunningham, Jr., Gary Jean Dagley, Christopher J. Dean, Jr., Henry Albert Deutsch, Francis Joseph Duffy, Billy Marcus Edwards, Gary Ronald Ellerman, Raymond Dean Ellis, Irvin Jr. Emmerich, Waddell Evans, Andrew C. Evans, Harold John Faldermeyer, Francis James Fennelly, Patrick Vincent Fitzgerald, George Edward Fogelman, Lonnie D. Foley, Ollie Curtis Freeman, Robert Martinez Fuentes, Oscar Conando Gallegos, Ronald Davis Galpin, Claudel Gandy, Willie Frank Garner, Robert Charles Geiger, James Michael Gilbert, Calvin Lionel Gooch, Bruce Andrew Gurley, David Dell Graham, Thomas Edward Gray, Michael Wayne Green, Martin L. Green, Jr., Bradford Barton Green, James Etheridge Green, Jr., Edward Wilson Griffith, Arturo Bustamante Gutierrez, Marvin Jim Hanna,
Daryl Elmer Hartman, John Herbert Hazelton, Thomas William Hastings, James Robert House, James Stewart Hay, James Wallace Hill, Jr., Donald Eugene Honeycutt, Willie Rogers Hornberger, Richard Curtis Jackson, Joseph Edward Jaquez, Gerald Dean Jared, Juan Macias Jimenez, Larry Ray Johnson, Jerry Allen Johnson, Tommy Wayne Johnston, Danny Lee Jones, George Henry Jules, Robert Calvin Kirkmar, Harold Paul Kindleberger, Terrence Edwin Cleric, Brian Theodis Knight, George Gerald Kokosh, Robert Gary Koval, David Michael Kozak, Jerry William Lampert, Terry Lee Larson, Nathan Larry Lee, Michael Lewis Lickey, Gary Harold Linder, John Holmes Lynn, Stephen Ray Lopeman, Frank Leo Luke. Roger D. Manns, Terry K. Moretti, Reese Leslie Marple, Joseph Thomas Martin, Johnny Cochran Martin, Stephen Larry Martin, Bobby Joe Martinez, Roger Michael Mathewson, John Edward McCarroll, Terry Allen McCarthy, Patrick Ryan McClure, John Robert McLaughlin, William Lee Menconi, John Mitchell Mikulski, Albert Milburn, Craig Wesley Mitchell, Lanzia Ray Moore, John Terry Moore Jr., Michael David Mueller, David Munoz, R.C. Myers, Michael Seiji Nakashima, Charlie Thomas Neal, Robert Nelson Newman, Willard Donald O'Brien, Robert Lee O'Connor, Christopher James Olexa, James Robert Olson, William Frederick Otto, Richard Manuel Paco, William Ernest Pask, Charles Martin Penley Jr.,
Edward Wayne Pigg, Hugh Frank Price, Jerry William Pyle, Chester J. Radgowski Jr., Dennis Robert Rank, Robert Crawford Ransom Jr., Archie James Roberts Jr., Mark Lamont Rosenstock, Aaron Lieb Rosenstreich, John Marshall Rucker, Henrich Rollman, Gregory Allen Russell, William Cornelius Ryan Jr., James Sidney Riley, John Edward Schertz, Michael Allen Schroeder, Samuel Bruce Schwartz, James Louis Sheff, David Henry Shiflett, Ronald Lee Shropshire, Harold Riley Simmons, Edward Monroe Simpson, Neely James Singletary, William Shelley Slaughter, Stanley Richard Smith, Samuel David Smith, Robert B. Starks, Jr., Rodney Lynn Strobridge, Scott Eugene Sutherland, William Henry Swanson, Clifford Kazumi Tyra, Danny Joe Tolby, Bernard Albert Tesk III, Hubert Samuel Tilley Jr., Wayne McKinley Traylor, David Allen Trincala, Norman Lee Tungate, Michael Bruce Turner, Leroy Frank Valdez, Robert Scholler Van Doon, Daniel Joseph Vaughn, John Arthur Verneau, James H. Villaponto Jr., Keith Dan Vincent, Thomas Lee Wade, Edward Walker, Michael Arthur Walters, Carlisle Ogden Wark Jr., Chester James Wortman, Amos Carlton Watson, Morgan William Weed, Larry Lee Whedon, Ronnie Jean Weiss, David Claude Wells, Perry Lee Whittington, Robert John Williams, James Claiborne Wilson, Roy Lee Wilson, George William Winkles Jr., Earl Woods, Daniel Joseph Yaddock, Kenji Jerry Yamashita, Victor Manuel Yanez, Horace Earl Young, Edward Anthony Zimmerman, Richard Lee Zodi.